There were times I was lost, dark had fear, couldn't see through the rain. In the end, it was clear. Hit the fan, I was more than one man who was there to lend a hand. Together we'd stand, always had my back, my guardian soldier. Team put together, united we conquer. Blessed is he who in the name of charity carry me when I'm weak straight through the valley of darkness. Pitch blackness, the heartless, regardless, fear couldn't part us. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. We ride, ride. Holding strong, united we stand, divided we fall. Together we belong. I am my brother's keeper. Keep on holding strong, united we stand, divided we fall. Together we belong. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper.
Welcome back, Moto fans. A lot has happened in the last week on the Supercross front, with both another round of the WSX and the Paris Supercross taking place. And we're just days away from the biggest Supercross event of the year in Australia, the AUSX Open. So I thought we should do another pod to cover all of the latest storylines. Big thank you to our partners for this episode: Wonthaggi Motorcycles and Power Equipment, Fastline Suspension, Wolf Building Compliance, and the November sponsors of our Motocross and Supercross wall calendars, 443 Photography and Moto Cred. All right, my co-host is back for another week. More Than Motos as Minerds. Welcome back to the show, mate.
Oh, cheers for having us again, Pete. Two podcasts in 2 weeks. Starting to become a regular.
Mate, you are a regular, and if I could drag you on more, I definitely would. How you been anyway in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, no, it's been a good week. Just the usual 9 to 5 grind with a weekend full of taking the kid riding and spending more time around dirt bikes, watching racing, and back to work again.
And pumping out Supercross content. I've noticed you're posting a little bit from Cronulla and you're posting a bit from the AUSX Open last year, so you're definitely at it.
Yeah, no, I thought I've got a heap of photos there that didn't really get used. So I thought I'd chuck a couple of galleries up on my site, and if people are looking for a second photographer after yourself, obviously, I'm available.
No, it should be good. Obviously, we've both got good access this year to shoot, and the AUSX Open's always a lot of fun. So we might as well start with that. Not a lot of new news since our last podcast. Yeah, what's the latest? Have you heard any goss about the AUSX Open?
No, not a great deal really, apart from obviously what the social posts that the boys have been putting up on their pages. But it's sort of, I wouldn't say quiet, but nothing out of the ordinary. Obviously, a couple of the Aussie boys have been racing in different parts of the world, but only a handful. So I think there's a bit of excitement around it. I'm obviously looking forward to getting there and getting the camera out and taking some photos and maybe do a few little video interviews after the racing and stuff. But I'm just looking forward to seeing this event get underway again.
Yeah, it's such an awesome event, and it always draws a good crowd. They get a lot of fanfare with the activations in between the racing and before the day even starts. And obviously we've got a good lineup. We've got all our Australian Supercross Championship riders there, and the Lawrence brothers are going to be back. It was a bit touch and go there for a second. I thought when I saw Jet go down in Paris that we could be in a bit of trouble.
I think there was a few people holding their breath when that video, that imagery appeared, but luckily it looks like he wasn't too banged up. And because both the boys had some decent crashes over the weekend, but it looks like they're both all okay to head down under and race again this weekend.
Yeah, hopefully. So it's going to be sick to see them again. In terms of other international riders competing, I don't think we're really going to see too many additional riders that haven't been competing in the whole championship, other than maybe McElrath.
Yeah, from what I understand, I think McElrath returns, and I heard maybe Savati's going to line up on the 450s, SX1. But yeah, I think in terms of international riders, I think that's it. And we're going to see pretty much the Australian Championship just continue on with a couple of extra riders in the SX1 class. 2 fast kids from Queensland.
I must say, having watched the Australian Championship and then the AUSX Open last year, and it's kind of a standalone event, but it's part of the championship, and you kind of never know where it stands. Like the Aussie Championship at the AUSX Open, I thought having those international riders was awesome, but I could never find my place as to how I felt about that. And then this year, watching the World Supercross with their wild cards, I'm starting to feel like having internationals detracts from the events. And obviously, in this case, the Lawrences coming over is awesome. There's only just the two of them, It's not like you've got a whole bunch of wild cards or different riders at every race. So that's going to be amazing because they're the two best riders in the world at the moment. I think, there's not going to be too many arguments about that unless you're American. But yeah, how do you sort of feel about that? And is it a good thing having just the Lawrences, or would you have preferred to see a few more internationals come over for this event?
Yeah, I think with just the Lawrences turning up, and really they should, if all things being equal, as long as they don't get caught up in anything silly, they should run 1-2, which doesn't really affect the championship too much, apart from just maybe making the point spread a little lower at the top. So it shouldn't have too much effect on that. And obviously SX2 doesn't look like we'll have anybody who really mucks up the points there. I think for an event like AUSX Open, it sort of needs those big draw card names, especially when you go into a stadium like Marvel where you've got 50,000 seats you could fill.
Yes.
And I think if you get the right riders, if you get a couple in SX2 and two or three in SX1, and it's just for one round and it's in the middle of the series, it doesn't have as much as an impact as, say, the World Supercross, where they've got all their big name riders coming in for just two races at the start of the season, and they sort of all leave while they're at the top of the point standings.
Yeah, and I think I probably waffled a little bit, but that's what I was sort of getting at. I think for one round, it's unreal, and we're only 2 rounds into the World Supercross Championship, and we'll talk about that soon. But I'm not liking having the different riders there at each round when it's a championship.
Yeah, and I think it mainly only affects our SX1 class in that series. But yeah, you're right. We're going to get to the third round in Australia, and trying to keep track of who's actually leading the series and who's in championship and podium series contention gets a little confusing. So it's a bit different on the WSX side compared to the Australian Championship. I think, yeah, again, with the Australian Championship just being one round with some internationals coming in, I think is a good mix.
And for anyone sitting on the fence about, whether they should go or watch it on TV, I think there was a little bit of news potentially about the Lawrences as well, that they may, this may be your last chance in a little while to come watch them at the AUSX Open.
Yeah, some of the interviews coming out of Paris on the weekend, it looks like Honda will have a new bike for 27, and the boys obviously need time to dial that in properly and spend time at the test track. So it sounds like there'll be no off-season racing apart from Motocross of Nations.
Yep.
And even from the sounds of it, that's only happening because they needed to defend. So I'm only hearing that from other interviews I've listened to over the weekend. It's not 100% at the moment. I guess we'll be able to confirm that on the weekend during some of the press conferences that go down.
Yeah, and I mean, if they confirm it there, even then, it's still a long time, till this time rolls around again next year. So things might change, but there's not going to be that many more opportunities to see these guys unless you're travelling to the States or going to, somewhere else where they might race, like Motocross of Nations. So, I think while they're here, and it's an awesome event, if you're a fan of motocross and supercross, get a ticket. Get it now.
Oh, 100%. And there's nothing better than watching it live at the track, and then you can go home and watch it on TV later anyway. It's all on demand.
Yep.
So yeah, while they're in town, yeah, that's it. For those people even like myself, the chance of me getting overseas and seeing them overseas is probably not that high. So that's why I make sure I try to get to Marvel every year and see him while I've got the chance.
Yeah, and that was one thing that blew me away last year with Jet. Obviously we'd watched him on TV in the lead up to last year's AUSX Open. I saw him when he was 16. I think it was in 2019 at Marvel as well, in his first ever Supercross race. But beyond that, like watching him last year through the day in their practice and qualifying, like I got a new appreciation for his ability when I saw him in person, because there's just things that you see when you're looking at it through your own eyes rather than on the TV. He's just a completely different animal. He takes different lines. He's an alien. Like, he does things on the dirt bike that look like they're out of a video game.
Oh, 100%. And seeing him live last year at Marvel, the Super Pole lap he put in, it's still one of the best things I've ever witnessed live on a track of any type. And it wasn't just Jet last year as well. Even seeing Cooper Webb live in action and up close to the track last year was just something you don't realise how much body language and how much different these guys ride
Yes.
at the very top until you can see it in person. So, yeah, if you go on this weekend and you've got a chance to get early access through some of the tickets they have, that's even more worth it. Seeing these guys in the practice and qualifying sessions before the heat starts
Yep.
and
Yep.
watching them pick apart a track is just
I remember I was standing next to you and I think Josh Reynolds during the first practice session last year, and I was like watching Jet, and it was like, when's he going to do a hot lap? Because he looked like he was just cruising around, and then all of a sudden he was 2 seconds faster than everyone, and it was like it looked like he wasn't even trying.
Yeah, it's just a different level, isn't it? And obviously his style, he's just got that smooth, silky style. It looks
Yeah,
like he's not going fast even when he is. So yeah, it's something you need to see in person to really appreciate.
totally. You know, we've seen it so much with Supercross and Motocross. You never know what's in store for these guys. Like, it's a dangerous sport. So, yeah, you know, you can't take for granted that they're going to be here for another 10 years. I think if he is, he's going to achieve amazing things. You know, and that goes for all these guys. If you're a fan of a particular rider and you get an opportunity to see him, you got to bite the bullet, I think.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what we were just speaking about in regards to having these one-off riders come over. I think that is what the big draw card is.
Yep,
Just to see a Roxon once or a Tomac once. There's riders like Marvin Musco, I've never seen ride live in person. So even if they brought someone like him back in a year next year, it's somebody I'd want to go and see just to see somebody who's been at that level ride.
for sure. It's always good watching these guys, but like I said, I just don't want them. I don't want them coming over and racing intermittent rounds of the championship. Like, if they're there for the whole championship or they're there for the AUSX Open, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm not loving the model for WSX. The only other news I think I can think of with Australia, we heard on the weekend that Matt Moss has re-aggravated his injury. He doesn't look like he's going to be racing.
No, I'd be pretty doubtful. I was watching some live timing over the weekend while I was out on Sunday and noticed his times were well off the pace. And by the time I got home and watched the racing, yeah, it obviously looked like he had another off or something's been aggravated. So it looks like he'll probably be sidelined from this weekend. But has he done a round so far?
Buenos Aires?
No, I mean of the Australian Supercross.
No. Remember, he didn't race
No.
at Redcliffe. He was meant to, and then first he had an injury, and then he said he wasn't comfortable on the bike, and then
then
Cronulla,
with
he was
injuries.
eating curry. So
Yeah. So we might not see Matt Moss. We definitely won't because the last round he'll probably be in Queensland anyway if he's racing.
unfortunate, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yep. Move on and see who else is racing.
That's it. All right, World Supercross. So the event travelled 7,000 miles from Buenos Aires to Canada. I thought it was a step up from round one in Canada, which I always expected because, you know, Canada is closer to the US and has its own Supercross series. So you've got a much more Supercross-based culture to build an event from. But, yeah, before I sort of say too much about my thoughts, what were your thoughts on Canada and round two of the World Supercross Championship?
Yeah, I thought Canada was the broadcast. I've just watched the races. I haven't really watched anything between the races because I watched it on replay. I thought the broadcast was definitely a step up from the first round. There was nowhere near as much talking over each other, and Ralph didn't seem to be screaming at us quite as much, which was great.
I still noticed it a few times.
Yeah, and he lit the candles at the end of all 6 races, so that was good to hear. But no, I think the broadcast was definitely better. At first, when I was watching it, I thought there was no crowd in the stands whatsoever. And then when I went back and watched some of the races for a second time, I think it was just behind the start gates. Looks like they congregated everybody into
One side.
one part of the stadium. Yeah, because one part looked really full and the rest looked reasonably empty. So numbers wise, from what I heard, they had more there this year than they did last year. But I don't know the exact figure on how many people attended last year. But it looked like a decent attendance. Argentina, I actually heard during the week, it was the stands they put up held just under 10,000 people.
Yep.
So that wasn't as bad as I thought it might have been. And they probably could have got more people there as well.
Well, I think
So
that's not too far. I think we sort of anticipated maybe or estimated maybe about 8,000. So
yeah, I think you were pretty well on the money.
yeah, it wasn't too far off.
Yeah. So no, I think it was the production was better. The racing was great. Some of the racing, especially in SX1, SX2, I think Anthony obviously got out the front and won every race, but it wasn't. He'd run away, but just behind him was some great battles and some nice little nice little battles with what was it, Thompson and who
Cullen
he had a
Park.
run in with Talon Park. Yeah, that made for some interesting TV. And yeah, SX1, the racing in that was just pretty well next level. It was some really good battles between Rox and Tomac, and a couple of the other boys sort of getting up the front early and mixing it up.
Well, I think there's been quite a few talking points that have come out of this round, but as far as the broadcast goes, I actually noticed it a lot more, maybe because you pointed it out at the last round, but Ralph talking over the other guys, and especially over DB. I didn't notice it as much over Emick, but there was a few times he just cut Daniel Blair off mid-sentence and just was like screaming in the microphone, which I thought was funny. I sort of laughed every time. But did you notice a couple of times when Daniel Blair and Jeff Emig were talking, and you said you hadn't watched too much of the Between the Races stuff, but there was a couple of moments when Jeff Emig was talking to Daniel Blair that he looked like he was having a stroke. He sort of he was standing up, he was twitching, his eyes glazed over, and then he clearly wasn't listening to Daniel, and then he sort of fumbled over a response to what Daniel had just said.
I might have to go back and watch some of all the stuff between the races, but no, I didn't know. Obviously, yeah, I didn't see that.
And I have a feeling, just by the look on his face, either he was having a stroke, more likely, I think they must have been talking to him in his ear. So he had like multiple things going on, and it just happened over and over. And like later on, when it happens again, he looks like he's getting really frustrated. So definitely something I think they have to address, because I don't know how much they sort of talk in Ralph's ear, but he's a seasoned professional at it. But if they kept doing it, Jeff looked like he was struggling a bit.
Well, from the sounds of it, it looks like it would just be DB and Ralph for the next few rounds or for the remainder of the season.
Oh, wow.
So it looks like Ebbing might have just been a wild card commentator.
Yep.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, from some other interviews I've watched throughout the week, or the start of the week, sounds like the commentary team might bounce in and out over the next couple of rounds.
Yeah. Oh, that's disappointing. I think the three of them worked well together. I really like all three of them. I think Daniel Blair is one of the best commentators, media guys to watch, to hear his insight, his breakdown, and just the way his delivery. Like I always enjoy his delivery. He's kind of serious, covers the important stuff, but it's also a little bit lighthearted sometimes. So, I'd be stoked to see him at the rest of the rounds.
Yeah, I think he will be at the rest of the round, so hopefully he is. And yeah, it'd be great to see him continue on and maybe partner up with somebody else next year and give it a bit more of an international flavour or something. Maybe break it up a bit. Yeah, we don't, for a World Series, we probably don't need American commentators at every single round. Maybe bring Hammy in for a few rounds.
Yeah,
I think I'd much rather listen. Well, I quite enjoy Hammy's commentary, so yeah, bring him in. DB and Hammy would be a good combination.
If Hammy does some research, I'll be all for it. I actually like Hammy as a commentator. Said my thoughts sometimes about not knowing the riders' names. That I find that frustrating. If he can get past that, man, I'd listen to him any day of the week and twice on Sundays. So what were your thoughts on the track? Obviously, the grey dirt was something we spoke about off air a little bit. I thought it looked amazing in photos. It made the video look washed out. But, dirt colour aside, what did you think about the track?
Oh, I thought that actual track layout was on par with any of the top supercrosses you ever see. I think, again, it wasn't over technical in terms of layout. I think from the riders' comments, it got real technical from how slippery and ruddy it got. But it kept the racing close. Obviously, the front guys will always spread themselves out from the field a little bit, but it sort of made for some really tight racing. There was a couple of sections, even if they had changed the way they'd hit the rhythm, it still come out pretty even at the end of it. I think Roxon had a couple of good lines where he could triple out of a section and make up a bit of time. But no, I thought the overall shaping and design of the track was great. The dirt did have that grey look about it. The whole atmosphere again had a really dark look about it.
Yep.
And I think again the seats in the stadium looked like they were grey, red, and black. All the signage was yellow, black, and with a little bit of red.
They have to do
They
something
have to
about
just,
that branding. It's terrible. Like, with no series sponsorship and just those black and yellow tough blocks, like, it just looks so plain.
yeah, and I think a couple of the outside sponsors they did have on it. I was looking at one of the things I was looking at for some reason with the tough blocks. It looked like it was either a cat or some type of trucking brand or something on there, and it was just black and red. It wasn't World Supercross branding; it was another branding, but it was the same type of colours,
Yep.
and it had a real monotone look about the whole event. Yeah, it gave a bit of a weird feel, but obviously once the racing starts, you sort of look past it, and then rewatching it back on, I couldn't find it on 7 Plus to watch the original, and that's why I've pretty much only seen the races and not anything in between. But when I've gone back to watch it on 7 Plus, the actual color was a little bit better and it looked a little bit brighter, but it still has got that dark overtone to it.
Yep. Did you hear what Ken Roxon said about the track? I thought that was
No,
not a glowing review.
no, I missed that.
Oh, he said it was his least favourite conditions. Then there was a pause, and he says, "Probably ever."
Oh, jeez.
And then he said it was slippery, rocky, multiple times, and treacherous.
It's funny because when you go back through the footage and you just look at the track, and then again, that's another reason to go and watch Supercross because TV does not give you any real indication of how these tracks actually form up,
Totally
the
agree.
ruts, because it looks like a smooth track and you can't see any of the rocks in it. Yeah, you can see a couple of ruts here and there in some of the corners, but obviously that track was not as easy as it looked.
I mirror your sentiments. I thought it was a good layout. It was a good track, sort of what we'd see everywhere. It was fairly simple. But for me, at the end of the day, I really don't care about the track. Like, I'm not going to be too critical if it produces great racing, because that's what everyone's there to see. You know, I'm not there to see an obstacle course per se. I'm there to watch great racing. So we sort of got to look at the ingredients that make some of these tracks that produce the best racing and focus on that rather than, you know, making a track that is going to break down or be super hard to get around. And to be honest, I don't necessarily like tracks that create big separation. Yes, the great guys love it when the tracks get like that because it gives them an advantage. But ultimately, I want to see all the riders bunched up and having battles.
Yeah, and that's where I think World Supercross, if they want to make a mark, and even here in Australia, if you want to keep people coming back and people interested, yeah, it's good to have really tough technical tracks that separate the riders. But as I said, fans want to see close racing, and that track did provide some real close racing. I think we've seen it in Australia so far this season as well. The racing has been reasonably tight, and the track, obviously, from rounds 1 and 2 to round 3, 1 and 2 were the same track. The first 2 rounds was probably a little bit more of a basic track, and it did keep things a little bit more tighter. But even the third round at Cronulla, the truck was more technical, but it wasn't to a point where it really separated riders and people still stayed reasonably close.
Yep. Yeah.
And yeah, and I think we've seen it with World Supercross. Argentina and now the Canadian round have both provided some close racing,
Yeah. Yep.
but still good tracks to watch racing on. Yeah,
Yep. And in both classes as well.
yeah. And again, you're going to get the runaways like Anstey. If he's got a whole shot, it probably doesn't matter if he's in America on the most technical track against the best riders in America. He's still probably going to run away with a race win.
Yep. And Ken Roxon. So the news has come out now. I heard it during the week. He's only doing 3 rounds.
Yeah, and again, I've seen an interview. I think Lewis Phillips had. I actually watched all his interviews pre-race from Vancouver, and there's some really good interviews. If you get a chance to go and watch them, it's worth a listen. He spoke to Ken about the series, and apparently he had a contract in place where he was meant to do all rounds this year, and he was happy to do all rounds. Yeah, they decided they didn't need him for 3 rounds, so that's all he's doing. I think he didn't mind either way if he'd done every round or if he'd done all 5 or he just done the 3. I think just doing the 3 gives him a chance to get back to the US and get some testing in before A1.
Yep.
But yeah, he said he was quite happy to and was sort of looking forward to doing all 5 rounds.
Is that a bad sign? Because I know Ken Roxon's money, you know, when they announced it was it last year or the year before? I think it was the year before that WSX had basically engaged him because they needed a big name to grow the series off, and they were putting in a whole lot of money to have him for 3 years. So it wasn't the team necessarily paying his salary to attend the World Supercross and race the World Supercross. Is this a money thing? Like, are they short on cash?
I don't know. That's a good question. I know you have probably a feeling that it might be. I'm not 100% sure if it's a cash thing. My other theory, obviously, I spoke to you before about it, was maybe they just don't need him in Sweden and South Africa as a draw card, because maybe just going to those places in the first place with the riders that they'll still have there are big enough draw cards. And in terms of international engagement, who else is going to jump online and watch it? There's no other competition once we get past the Australian round. They don't have to compete against the Bursies or the Australian Supercross series or anybody else. They're the last series going racing for this year. Maybe they think they just don't need the big draw cards for the last two races because there's nothing else. If people want to watch Supercross, that's the only option.
Yeah. I mean, I could be a little bit of both. If we look at Buenos Aires and, let's assume they sold 8 to 10,000 tickets for what they're paying Kenny, that's not going to cut it, really, at the end of the day, as well as all their other overheads of hosting the event.
Especially when you got Kenny and Deegan there with only 10,000 people in the crowd.
Yep. If that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I think that's, for me, that's disappointing again. Like I said, I like, if they're gonna have a championship, they kind of have to have a championship. Having a whole bunch of riders do 2 or 3 rounds at the top of the points, I think is a really, really shit look. Kenny's gonna finish the championship ostensibly leading with 2 rounds to go, and then be overtaken. And what happens if he still finishes second or third, so he ends up on a championship podium in one of these countries and he's not even there?
Well, that's what I was about to try and get the results, the current standings up, but unfortunately they could do a little... Oh, there we go. You press on it, then you've got to slide... Yeah, you actually got to scroll down. So if you go and look at it, he's got 20 points on Anderson already. And who's going to be next? It'll be Anderson, Christian Craig and Savachi. So Savachi's already 30 points down on him. For technically, Savachi could be third in the championship. We come out of Australia, that could push all the way to close to 40, 50 points.
Well, I'd say
so Savachi might not...
On the balance of averages, if he's gained 10 points a round, let's just go on that. So he'd be 30 points up at the next round.
Yep. So there's every chance, even with him out, not there. I guess Savachi will pick up more points because there won't be you won't have your 2 wild cards that you have to beat as well. But there's every chance Roxon beats Joey and maybe even Christian for second and third in the championship at this stage.
Yeah. That's not a good look.
And no, not they might actually have to fly him out of the last round just to be there to put him on the podium at the end of the night.
Which looks even worse. He's here, but he didn't race because we couldn't afford to pay him.
And I can't see him fly. Well, the last round's South Africa, isn't it? I can't see him flying all the way out to South Africa just for that.
Mate, they'll have to pay more in security than they would have to pay him to race.
We'll put it this way. Tomac, after missing the first round, is only 9 points behind Joey. Tomac's already sitting 6th in the championship.
Yep.
There's every chance Tomac's sitting 3rd. Well, Tomac and Deegan could be sitting 3rd and 4th in the championship after next weekend. So your top 4 just disappear for the last 2 rounds.
Yeah. No, they definitely need to clean some things up. For me, the racing on the weekend was a big plus. But as far as the championship goes, yeah, I'm not a fan of all this. On a positive, though, I think it was one of the biggest storylines to come out of World Supercross. Eli Tomac on that KTM. I got a little bit scared in that first race when Vince Freeze ran it in on him just off the start. But beyond that, mate, I did not know how he was going to go on a steel frame bike's so different. Some riders love them, some riders hate them. The transition is always a bit hit and miss. I would almost say that he looks better on the KTM already than he did on the Yamaha, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah, and it wasn't like he wasn't trying either. That especially that last race when Kenny got into second, it looked like it was going to be a battle between them. But he did look good. The only place where he seemed to get worse throughout the night was the whoops. Now we know they were breaking down because other riders started jumping through him as well. But Ken on the Suzuki looked like he was still blitzing him pretty straight right through the end of the race. So he did start jumping a bit at the end.
And he had a few moments.
Whereas Tomac looked like he had a few moments too. So you could put it just down to how beat up the whoops were getting.
Yep.
Again, it's only early days for him on that bike as well. So it could be a really good 26 season for Tomac.
Especially when we look back, like pre-season, he's never usually been at his best. Even the first few rounds of the AMA Championship, it usually takes him a little while to get going. That's always been sort of an observation they've made of Eli Tomac. To see him sort of beating Ken Roxon, who is a great starter, and he's good for the first part of the race, and he's always awesome in the off-season. To see Eli Tomac straight away on a new bike go out and win, I think it's going to put a lot of these guys on notice.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, it's shaping up to a good start of the American season with the way the form Roxon's in.
Yep.
Form Tomac's in. The rest of his riders have got some races under their belt as well. That was the crazy thing about the weekend. You look at the number of riders that raced on the weekend between WSX and Bercy, it's pretty much all of your top AMA 450 class riders raced apart from Sexton.
Yep.
Yeah, made for some interesting observations, that's for sure.
I actually had a note about that to talk about that because I think that, and we'll get into Paris and we'll break that down, but just as a talking point, I think having Paris clash with WSX and the later Aussie round in Adelaide clashing with WSX as well, it's left only American riders in the field and a couple of Frenchies to race the World Supercross Championship. Like normally we would have seen more Aussies in the World Supercross Championship, more French riders and maybe even a couple of Europeans. You might see guys like Prado or something like that race it, or Vial. Well, I feel that having these events clash is robbing the, quote, World Championship of being a real World Championship. And I think what we saw in Canada emphasises that we really need to have these races on alternating weekends. Or, if we can't do that, look at incorporating World Supercross back into, a 2-day event that backs onto, Paris or the AUSX Open again or something like that.
Yeah, I can't see that happening definitely with it.
No.
Not in Paris because that event's well and truly established as their 2-day event. But yeah, sort of agreeing. I think it could be harder. Obviously, it's been a bit of a weird off-season in terms of how many of the top Americans have actually gone into overseas to race. So you don't normally get this many all able and putting their hands up to go and do these races. To have Deegan, Tomac, even Christian Craig's a bit different. Cooper, Anderson, Roxon, Mookie, Lawrence brothers, Cooper Webb, all racing on the same weekend is pretty unheard of for the off season, especially for an American season that seems to be getting longer and longer with Super Motocross and the extra 3 races at the end of the year.
I think the realisation that there's more money in the world Supercross scene now that these guys can tap into and make an income during the off season, and B, that they can use some of these events to prepare themselves for A1 for the off season, both to get gate drops and race fitness. I think they're starting to see the advantages of that, and therefore I think it becomes more and more important for World Supercross to separate themselves from these other events, because the way it is now, I almost feel like it's an off-brand AMA championship round. Yeah.
And again, I think with the injuries in WSX between both classes, they'll start to need to find some fill-in riders. And coming to Australia, if they weren't clashing, would have been a perfect opportunity to probably grab 1 or 2 riders and top the gates back up.
Yeah.
It might create a couple of opportunities for some Australian riders because they're not going they're going to lose all their wild cards going into these last couple of rounds. And they're not going to want to go from 14 and 16 riders on the gates to 10 and 12.
Oh, mate, 14 looks bad enough. And that
Yeah.
actually leads me to my other point. I think ideally WSX needs to have at least a couple of riders from the countries they visit in each class, except maybe Africa, because I don't know how strong the Supercross scene is over there. Both for a local draw card, to attract, because that will get bums on seats as much as a top rider will as well. If you've got a local guy that you can cheer for, but also to establish it again as a World Supercross Championship.
Yeah, and that's always going to be, I guess, a bit of a tough one depending on the countries they're going to. Even if it's not from that country, somebody from that region.
Of course,
Which
yeah.
I think they tried to do that a bit this year. They did with Justin Cooper. I'm not sure what his ties exactly were with South America and Argentina, but they made sure he was decked out in the Argentinian football jersey of such. Enzo Lopes was there as well. So, but yeah, when they go to Sweden, I don't think there's a Swedish Supercross rider at the moment. I'm sure we'd struggle to find a Swedish motocross rider at the moment, wouldn't we?
But, well,
Yeah.
I guess what I was really looking at is like Australia. Australia is it's got a massive Supercross scene. It's got very capable riders. But because of this, and I'll say it's pig-headed, going head-to-head mindset, it's that old saying of cutting your nose off to spite your face.
Yeah, the clash coming up in a couple of weeks' time is a really bad clash. I don't think for spectator-wise or anything like that, I don't think for spectator numbers it's going to make any difference, obviously, with the Adelaide race having plenty of spectators there for the V8s or the supercars anyway.
Yep.
But it's going to be interesting to see if any of the Aussie, especially the SX2 Aussie riders, jump on board and continue their season and go and do the last two races in Sweden and South Africa. It could be a good opportunity for a couple of the boys to head over and fill in a couple of these seats that have become vacant.
If they can, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That would be awesome to see. And then we'll coming off a full Aussie season, it'll be a great opportunity to see how they stack up.
Yeah, especially with, obviously there's no wild cards in SX2, but yeah, and theoretically, apart from Anstey, there's no reason that our top SX2 riders from this country couldn't run with the front of that field anyway.
I agree.
I think that'd be on par, yeah.
Well, actually...
So, yeah, hopefully it might be something we see.
Yeah, I would have agreed, except how good did Cody Schock look? I mean, for me, him running second in that field, not that impressive. But for him running that close to Max Anstey when Max Anstey looked like he was on rails, that's what impressed me.
Yeah, and he made some good passes. I think it was the first race he come from about fifth up to maybe second.
Yeah, second. I think he went 2-2-2 from memory.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he ended up with 40 points, so he must have done. So yeah, he looked really impressive. I think McElrath had some bike issues.
Yes.
I was trying to work out why he was struggling, but yeah, look, some of the interviews from throughout the day, it looks like he had some bike issues in practice and qualifying, was jumping between bikes or something wasn't quite 100%.
I don't know. I've got some question marks about McElrath. I mean, he didn't do well at Redcliffe in the Aussie Series. He didn't do well at Buenos Aires, except maybe in the last Moto. And he didn't do well now in Canada. Like, surely that can't all be bike stuff.
No, well, I think obviously the first 2 rounds in Australia was more getting caught up with those crashes, wasn't it?
Yeah, but...
And then on a track that wasn't probably separating riders too much, so he probably might have just been the way it was. He wasn't able to make all the passes he needed to in shorter races, and on a track that just didn't have much separation. But yeah, Argentina, yeah, you're right. It was a bit hit and miss there. And now Canada not looking good. I guess we'll find out when hopefully he does race this weekend at AUSX. Yeah. That will definitely answer some questions.
Yeah, for sure. And that's going to be a track, that by all accounts should be right up his alley, because we always see, really good world-class tracks at AUSX.
And normally a little bit wider, a bit more room to move around. So, yeah, there probably won't be any excuses for not being able to move the way through the field. But the SX2 field in Australia at the moment is pretty talented and deep as well. So I don't think you can afford to start 10th there and just guarantee you're going to work your way back up into the top 3 at the moment.
Definitely not. The only other rider that I wanted to mention, I think he really stood out in Canada was Jason Anderson. I mean, I love the look of the Suzukis, and he looked like a completely different animal to the Jason Anderson we've seen recently and the Jason Anderson that we saw, in the last year or two on the Cowie.
Yeah, he looked aggressive. But again, I think when it came down to that, the last race, he sort of, and I think he done the same in Argentina. He had a bit of bad luck with crashes in the early races. I thought he might have been able to stick a bit closer to Ken and Tomac especially in that last race. But again, at the same time, yeah, if the track was that slippery and a little high risk, I think Anderson's the type of rider who's not going to go, or most of them probably not going to go balls out to try and win a race for the World Supercross. Whereas I think maybe Ken and Tomac, once they got into it with each other, both had something to prove. Whereas maybe Anderson hasn't got as much he needs to prove at this time of the year.
Well, the commentators were saying in between the races with Jason Anderson that he was still looking to build his race fitness, and that they'd spoken to him and he'd said that he wasn't quite there yet.
I guess he is coming off pretty much hasn't raced for the last 6 months either, has he?
Yep.
So, yeah, he would be building, whereas Roxon looks like he's pretty much at the top of his game already. And, yeah, doesn't look like he's got too much to build on going into A1.
The only other thing I wanted to talk about too was, which I thought was hilarious, was Kristen Beat's face when she was interviewing Cody Schock on the podium. Did you see that?
I have not seen that, no.
He finished out his comment with, at the next round, I'm going to come back and I'm going to put this meat rocket on top. And he's obviously referring to a motorcycle with a human being on it. And Kristen Beat, I think, misinterpreted what he meant. And she actually said, I'm going to leave that closing statement there and move on. And then she went on to the next rider. But just the look on her face.
Meat rocket. That's
Oh,
how we refer to all riders from now on.
The meat rocket.
A field full of meat rockets.
Yeah. So, not to be crass, though, I think she had just pictured a different meat rocket.
I might have to go back and watch the podium interviews.
It was pretty funny. Very, very funny. Yo, we hope you're enjoying the show. Here at Mental4Moto, we can only do what we do because of the sponsors who support us. So please stay tuned for a couple of brief ads and make sure you show these legends some love. Are you getting arm pump? Fatiguing after just a few laps? Or feel like you're often fighting against your bike? Today's motorcycles have been designed and built to suit a broad range of riders, conditions and riding styles. This one-size-fits-all approach, however, means that when it comes to your own riding, your bike is often not handling and performing at its very best. Whether you're a weekend warrior or an elite-level racer, Fastline Suspension will help you unlock your riding potential by ensuring your bike is set up perfectly for your specific needs. And with the right setup, you're guaranteed to go faster, fatigue less, and ultimately have more fun riding your motorcycle. So what are you waiting for? Contact Adam at Fastline Suspension now. Fastline Suspension, set up for maximum performance, precision tuned for you. Whether you're out on the road, playing in the dirt, or on the water, Wonthaggi Motorcycles and Power Equipment have got you covered with their great range of motorcycles, marine and outdoor power equipment. Servicing South Gippsland for over 25 years, their friendly and knowledgeable staff pride themselves on being able to deliver the highest level of service. Stocking a full range of Kawasaki and Honda off-road, dirt and adventure motorcycles, kids bikes, ATVs, riding gear, consumables and hard parts, Wonthaggi Motorcycles and Power Equipment are your one-stop shop when it comes to having fun. The warmer months are nearly here, and there's nothing more refreshing after a day at the track when you're sweaty, grimy and exhausted than taking a dip in the pool. Southeast Pools specialise in building high-quality fiberglass and concrete swimming pools across the Peninsula and Gippsland region and offer a range of designs to suit every lifestyle, yard size and budget. So pick up that phone, give Trav at Southeast Pools a call today and be ready to take the plunge this summer. Now, let's get back to the show. All right, and just to finish up the podcast, we'll just touch on Paris as well. I have only seen the highlights from Paris, but it looked like a fantastic event. Great track, bigger than maybe what I've seen in the past, and the whoops definitely looked huge. But I know you watched Paris, so what were your thoughts on Paris? And in your opinion, how did Paris sort of stack up against the World Supercross in Canada?
Well, I was the same. I've only seen bits and pieces of Paris. It was a harder event I think more time-wise to watch. I think Australia-wise, it was 3, 4 o'clock in the morning the racing was on, and all the practice and qualifying was through the night time for us. So, especially being the second day going into the Sunday night into Monday morning, it was especially working a 9 to 5 as well. It was a little bit hard to keep track of. I guess the big takeaways was Malcolm Stewart's speed. I think he
Yes.
won 4 to 6 races in the SX1 class and Super Pole both days. So yeah, and again, Mookie's a rider who's been injured reasonably recently as well. So the form he's in already coming and heading towards A1, this could I guess we say it every year, it's shaping up to be a bit of a cracker of a season.
Yeah, but there's always a lot of talk about Mookie pre-season. It's almost like, heat race Mookie. It's almost like pre-season Mookie. Mookie at the test track.
Yep.
I would love, I'm a massive fan, I would love to see him put it together, for a whole season, especially from the start of the season as well.
Yeah, see it week in, week out. So yeah, I guess that was one of the big things that came out of Paris. VL's first ride on the Honda, which nearly torpedoed.
Speaking of meat rockets, yep.
Yeah, the literal definition of a meat rocket. And again, you first see it, you go, oh shit, what was he thinking? And you watch it over a couple of times, and it was just purely an overjump and out of control. And unfortunately, Jet was in the wrong spot at the wrong time and copped the brunt of it.
Yeah. I must say I'm super impressed at the way he ate that case. That was huge.
It was huge, and he found somebody to bounce off of, and he got away with that with
nothing.
It was perfectly fine.
Far out. Yeah, that was, and the guys that were quadding that as well, that section, later in the weekend.
Well, I think it was only Malcolm and Jet that hit the quad in the end.
Far out. That was enormous.
Yeah, and it sounds like they were on production motors.
Well, that was
their frames.
I thought they were completely stock except for the suspension.
No, it sounds like suspension, chassis, and swing arm they had over there from what I've heard and seen.
Yep.
Just stock motors with mapping and a pipe.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So that takes away the argument more so, I guess, that it was a bike thing for them crashing in the whoops.
It's still, again, only from what I've taken away from listening to some other interviews and people that were at the event, it sounds like the chassis was it was what they had done for the outdoors in motocross last year. Obviously, they both missed a bit of supercross last year.
Yes.
So I think the bike's evolved a bit since supercross, so that it's still, in a lot of regards, maybe a bit of a new bike. Obviously not a completely new bike, but a bit of a different bike to what they were racing at the start of the supercross season. Now, again, I'm not 100% sure. It's only from some takeaways I've seen. So again, it might be some good questions to ask this weekend. And again, we don't even know what they're going to be on this weekend. It could be different again. I'm guessing if they can, are they going to ship the chassis and the swing arms over to Australia so they've got bikes that are closer to what they're going to be racing at A1?
It's going to be interesting. I think that was one of the issues they both had at the AUSX Open last year was, not riding their usual bikes, and then to sort of see a bit of a rough run at an off-season event again.
Yeah, and I guess you look at their results two ways as well. Okay, if it was they're still getting used to the bikes, they might have obviously had Motocross of the Nations, so they've been racing some more motocross. They're probably only just getting back into the swing of Supercross, so they probably both weren't anywhere near the top of their game. And yeah, it's just some unusual mistakes that you don't really see too often out of both of them.
Yeah.
Especially with Jet losing a front end in a corner and some just other little bits and pieces. It was a bit of a strange weekend for them.
Yeah, but not top of your game could be, coming second or third.
And that's the thing.
It's not necessarily exploding yourself in the whoops. So.
No, true. But even at that stage, he didn't look as clean as usual, but you can just see the speeds there. And I guess once they get to Australia, go back to the US test for a couple of weeks and probably come back at A1 close to where they need to be.
I have no doubt they'll be where they need to be come A1.
But it's scary to think how close that is.
Yeah.
That's what, 7 weeks?
The other side of that is too, though, forget the results. The risk of injury in an off season doing what they're doing, like the cost
Yeah.
on missing or not winning, an AMA Supercross championship is enormous. So,
And that goes back to all these riders racing World Supercross and these one-off events. So that's the only thing I find a bit not strange. It's good that they're all out there doing it, but it is a massive risk for all these riders and their manufacturers.
see, I can understand it with World Supercross because it's 2 or 3 events. They're getting paid good money by all accounts. They're getting to travel the world and see it. One-off events, like what the Lawrences are doing, I think that comes with a greater risk and potentially less reward.
I don't know. Are they earning less money to do
Maybe
one
not.
off? They're probably getting paid the same amount per event, whether they do World Supercross or Bercy.
Yeah,
And that's what goes for most of these riders. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, again, if it's worth going back and listening to some of the interviews from over the weekend, and even the way Roxon approached and even Tomac, some of their comments on the advantages and disadvantages of doing these preseason, or call them preseason, doing either World Supercross or these one-off events. There's plenty you can take away from it, because as I say, there's nothing better than a gate drop to see where you're really at and get a real feel for the bike.
And the track, to acclimatise yourself to the tracks. Yeah.
And you see how many riders will, if they don't race over the off season, will come out to A1, and all the testing they've done on the same track over and over again doesn't really replicate what's going to happen when they get to the races. So yeah, I guess it's an age-old question that teams and riders are got to keep asking themselves.
Yeah, for sure. And where I think the difficulty is in this case is that a lot of the championship teams that these riders are racing for in the US are not the same teams either that they're racing for at these off-season races, especially World Supercross. So, from a team perspective, to release the rider to race, that's a risk from the team as well.
Oh, a huge risk, yeah. Yep, because
they get nothing from it.
No, and you're talking about teams that are American teams with American Honda budget or American US budget. And yeah, these riders are going to one-off events. I guess give them some publicity, but not really in the same sense as it doesn't really give their sponsors any real coverage if they haven't got those markets in the countries they're going to. So yeah, I guess it comes down to the teams wanting or needing that the information that comes back from racing as well, and the testing of the bikes in a race situation.
It goes back to what I said before. I would love to see the World Supercross especially develop its own field of riders, like not be that off-brand AMA championship.
Yeah, not have to rely on having the top 4 or 5 US riders over there doing it.
Yep.
Fortunately, I think that happens by the Australian series losing a fair chunk of their riders to it.
Yeah,
unless they can find a way for the races not to clash in a short period of time.
Speaking of Australians, Luke Clout, last one I wanted to talk about with Paris. Yep, unbelievable.
Yeah, he won 5 of the 6 races?
Yep.
Or 4 of the 6?
No, 4 of the 6.
4 of the 6, yep. And was clearly the quickest rider in SX2. Now, I haven't even seen the incident of what happened in the race, but it sounds like he got landed on.
Oh, because he had a 13th in one moto, I think. So,
yeah, yep. And from what it sounds like, he got landed on by another rider. Must have been early in the race, and pretty well put him out for that race, finishing in 13th, which cost him Prince of Percy, Prince of Paris. What do they call it these days? Prince of Paris. It is. There it is. Yes.
Yep.
So he looked especially for somebody who jumped back onto a 250. I would say with no testing and no time to ride the bike until race day.
So I have 2 questions coming from this. The first one is, we know Luke Clout is a confidence animal. Like when he's confident, that's when we see him put in his best rides. Does this impact and have him step up a level come the AUSX Open on the weekend? That's question 1.
Well, I think from his last 2 rides now, because raced the last 2 weekends because he done the German Supercross, but on the SX1 class, and has finished second both nights there. Finished second again, but probably should have won. And Cronulla, he wasn't far off Wilson.
2-2.
I think, yeah. So I think he was heading towards this direction anyway. I'm actually looking forward to seeing how he goes this weekend.
Yep.
I think he clearly should at least be first or second out of the local guys. I guess it's advantage. It'd be, yeah, it's going to be really interesting. If he can podium this weekend, that will give himself another little boost of confidence.
All right. So question 2, I have heard and now keep hearing that we may see Luke Clout somewhere on a 250 again next year, that he is stepping back to racing 250. There was one field where I'd heard that it would be at Pro MX. I have put less credibility on that he would go back to a 250 in Pro MX. The second one was that he was going back to race in the US again for Supercross on a 250, which is, I think, probably the more credible rumour that I've heard. And it's definitely something we might be able to ask him on the weekend. But should Luke Clout go back and race on a 250?
If it's a chance in the US, 100%. That's what I was actually thinking about that after I started to see his Paris results. It's like, well, this might actually open a door, get some eyes on him again. Because it's not like he's pointed out of the 250 class in the US. The 250 class in the US at the moment's probably somewhere he could go and
do well,
run top 3. Yeah, do very well at the moment, I think. Yeah. The fact that he hasn't pointed out over there and can run that class, he would be a great pickup for a team.
I agree.
To go back and race at MX2 in Australia, I think wouldn't. I couldn't see it happen.
I couldn't see it happening either.
No, unless the team wanted to pay him. Well, wouldn't it be on a different team because Empire's only 450 from the sounds of it?
Yeah, next year. That's what I'm hearing as well. Yep.
So yeah, I think the only way that happens, there's no way he's going to get paid the same to race a 250 and a 450 in Australia. So you wouldn't take the pay cut over here, but there'd be every reason to head back to the US and have another crack.
Yeah, well, I'm tipping.
And actually, I'm hoping for him that is the opportunity he's got. I've heard no rumours. Being in little old Adelaide, you don't hear as much.
Yeah.
It'd be something he should be jumping at if he's got the chance.
I agree. The only thing that keeps, I guess, lingering in my mind is that I heard it from someone who actually is in the know in Australia, but I still can't see it happening.
For him staying in MX2 in Australia or going
back to MX2 in Australia, and I'm very skeptical. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want this to be misinterpreted. I don't believe it. I don't think it's going to happen. If he stays in Australia, I could only see him on a 450, and I put more weight to the rumours that he's going to the US and racing a 250 over there. I did hear that it would be on a Yamaha, which I think would be a great match for him. But either way, I just wanted to put that out there. So
only other way I could see him staying on a 250 in Australia is if there's a manufacturer out there who really wants to get that title back.
Well, especially, I guess, has Wilson Todd opened the door for this, because I know he's pushing to race the 250 again next year.
Yeah.
Does someone want to take it off Honda? Is this the thing? Because Honda's.
That's the only thing I could see how Clout could get paid enough to race a 250 in Australia, or get paid more to race a 250 than he'd be offered to race a 450 in Australia.
That would be pretty sick to see. I have to say, now that I'm thinking about it, like Wilson Todd and
an interesting concept that got to a point where manufacturers wanted to beat each other so bad that they'd drop riders down from MX1 because they know they've got their riders covered in that class and push them back into MX2 in Australia.
Yes. Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. I guess it depends on how you feel about MX1 and MX2. If you see them as equals, or you see it as people should go to the 450 and prove themselves there. But there's been some great Australian riders who've built their careers and reputations by just riding the smaller capacity bike.
And just to throw a cat amongst the pigeons in terms of rumours, does Empire potentially have 2 Tier 1 MX1 riders lined up for next year?
Well, it'd be hard to see if they didn't have clout. Who's your tier 1 riders that are left?
Interesting. Oh, silly season this year is going to be unreal.
Yeah, I thought it might be a bit more straightforward, but obviously not. And then there's that much talent in the MX2 class at the moment. They'll all be clamouring to try and hold their riders down too.
Yeah, a lot of musical chairs, I think. All right, did you have anything else before we catch up at the AUSX Open for another sick weekend?
No, I think we're actually looking forward to the AUSX Open at multiple levels now. Obviously, the event itself is going to be great and the racing's going to be great. But it sounds like the rumour train in Australia is heated up a fair bit more than I thought it had. So I reckon I might spend half my weekend trying to catch up on all the goss and rumours coming out of the east coast of the country.
I think all that will happen is there'll just be more rumours and more gossip at the end of it. Yep, leading into the last round and then the silly season. So yeah. Anyway, these storylines are all good. It leaves us something to talk about on the podcast.
Yeah, it sounds like there's going to be a heap to talk about. We'll get through this weekend, which I'm looking forward to, and then we'll see what rumours resurface by the time we head to Adelaide 7 days later.
For sure. Alrighty, well that brings us to the end of this episode. If you like this episode, don't forget to give us a positive review on your preferred podcast platform. Make sure you subscribe to Mental4Moto and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next show. Thanks, Az.
Cheers for having me again, mate. I once upon said I'd never do a podcast, mainly because I can't speak English half the time. But I've quite enjoyed doing them, so maybe I might have to go and get some speech classes over summer and come back and do a lot more with you next year.
You do just fine, and the bits that both of us stuff up, that's what editing's for.
Yeah, I don't think any live podcasts are going to happen anytime soon.
No, definitely not. All right, shout out to our partners for this episode, Wonthaggi Motorcycles and Power Equipment, Fastline Suspension, Wolf Building Compliance, and the November sponsors of our Motocross and Supercross wall calendars, 443 Photography and Moto Cred. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. On behalf of Mental4Moto, I've been your host, Pete Wolf. Until next time, see ya. A dirtbag